Now we are going to create our armor for our arm here, our lower arm. So this is going to be my inspiration for this. So we're going to be creating this. First thing we're going to do is model this part of the armor, these two things. This at the bottom and then this at the top. And then we're going to be doing this here. So remember, these are still in layers, so it's best to create the ones that's all the way to the bottom that's touching the hand area. And before I actually create that armor, remember we have extracted out some polygons for the gloves here. And I don't really like how it's sticking to each other after remeshing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delete that. Now, what we could do is we could hit the tab key. We're going to just make a copy of the polygons on the hands, on the arm, a little bit of the lower arm and the hands here. And we're gonna work from there, okay? So, I'm gonna go to my front view. And I'm gonna use my lasso tool here, Shift Z. And I'm gonna highlight a part of the mesh that I want to be for our gloves. And I don't really want this here. I'm gonna deselect that. So there you go. So selecting that one part here, and we could Shift D to make a copy of that, and press P as in Paula, and separate by selection. Okay, so now if you hit the tab key and then you click here again, you should see that you have one separate piece there. Now we could hit the tab key again and select that mesh, and we could Alt E on our keyboard and extrude along faces, and then we could add like some thickness on there. I think it's a little too much. I'm gonna go ahead and undo that. So I'm just gonna look from here so I could see. I don't want to really have it touch each other here on the finger, so I'm gonna extrude again along faces, and this time I'm looking from this view. Okay, so maybe something like that would be fine. And before you deselect anything, okay, let's go to object mode, isolate that. Okay, so I still have deselected the exterior part of the gloves. Control I on your keyboard. So that selects the inner part inside. We need to delete the inner faces. Delete faces. That way it's going to be a lot easier for us to unwrap. We don't really need the meshes from the inside because it's not really going to show. So all we really need are the faces that are out here. And also I could just go ahead and maybe change how I'm going to remove this material. There you go. Alright, I'm going to show everything again. Okay, so we have this one side there, and we need to make a copy of this on the other side. So let's go to our add modifier, add mirror modifier. There you go. So we have now on both. Great. Now it's time for us to do our armor for our lower arm. Let's start with the first piece of armor for our arm here. Let's create a plane. So we're gonna do some plane modeling for this. And just gonna go ahead and rotate this 90 degrees. And we could go ahead and just move that up. And just scale that down. We're gonna have it fit the character arm better later. But yeah, right now we don't really need to worry much about the scaling. And just gonna move this so it's kind of like in the middle. because the way we're gonna do this is we're going to model just one part of it, like half of this side. We're gonna start out by modeling just the frame part first, and we're only gonna do half first, right? And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna mirror it on the other side. So yeah, we're just gonna do half of the armor at the beginning. Okay, I'm just gonna hit the tab key and select the edge here, and I'm just gonna move it down. Yeah, just move it down a little bit more. Okay, so maybe something like this. And I'm gonna go to edge and just gonna move that to the side, and I'm gonna go to vertex. Select the vertex here and just move it. And extrude this out. Rotate it and scale it down a bit, tab it. And then extrude it. And rotate. Gonna go select the vertex here and just gonna move this like that. Yeah, and then I'm gonna go select this edge and extrude this. Rotate. Something like that. And feel free to always just mess around with what you have, never just sticking to what you have initially. There's always going to be some changes that you might need to make here. And going to this one and select this edge and extrude. Going to scale and scale this in the X direction. Gonna straighten that out. I'm gonna go straighten out the vertices. Have a lot more control with the vertices. And gonna move this up. Make this a little thicker because I wanted, you want it to be consistent. Could be, I think it's a little too thick, so maybe something like that. And this, and like this here, and kind of move this so it's more in the middle of the grid, and scale it, tab it, and I think it's a little too, needs to come like this and like that. Maybe this a little thicker. Okay, so something like that. And I think this could go up a bit. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at this as a reference here for the grid. Make sure it's straightened out as much as possible. And I can go select these and scale it in the Y direction. Further straighten that out. Okay, now we need to mirror this on the other side. And before we do that, we need to, if you go to object mode, you're going to see that the move tool or scale tool's not really in the middle. So if we mirror this, it's not going to mirror properly. So what we need to do is select either the vertex or an edge here in the middle. Shift S and cursor to selected. And I'm going to hit the tab key to go back to object mode. And let's go to set origin to 3D cursor. So now it's right in the middle. And we can go add a mirror, and it's not really connecting in the middle, so we need to mess around with the merge. I'm gonna set the merge to 1 so it merges in the middle, and I think it's a little too long, but do keep in mind that later on we're gonna be adding a bend modifier, simple deform modifier to bend this. This is going to bend, all right? This shape is going to bend, all right? Once we add that simple deform modifier, so it will be wrapping around the character's hand a little bit better. And so we do need to keep it wide, but I think in my case it's just a little tad bit, a little too wide, all right? So I'm gonna go hit the tab key and select the vertices here and make it less wide, maybe something like this. Yeah, something like that. And I'm gonna go here and apply the mirror, make that permanent, and hit the tab key, go to edge. I'm gonna go select the edges on the inner part here and going to extrude that out, and then right click to snap, and then just use a move tool to move it out. Alright, so maybe something like that. Okay, and I'm going to extrude again, press E, right click, and using the scale, so I'm going to scale it down a bit. So I want to have this nice edge look going. That way, when you might also want to scale it in the Y direction, so it's more accurate. The reason why I want to add another extrusion there for the face is so that when we add the subdivision surface, it's going to hold the shape a little bit better on the edges. Hey, something like that would be good. Now, next thing is we need to fill up the hole here, all right? Now, I'm gonna go to edge, and what I could do, want to go ahead and okay, so I want to extrude this out, okay, and scale this down. I rotate a bit, and I want to keep this a tweak. I'm just gonna move this. Go to vertex and move this here, and I want to also extrude this out, rotate, and kind of move this at the center, something like that. Okay, and what we could do is add another edge loop right here. Go to vertex and select the vertices here, the vertex there, and just gonna straighten. I want to select all the vertices right here and kind of straighten this out in the X direction. Shift Z. So it's selecting all the vertices, so kind of straighten this out, and then go select these two edges and press F to bridge them, and select this edge, press F to bridge. Okay, and I'm gonna be doing the same thing. I'm going to move this up a bit. Okay, so for this one, it's gonna be a little tricky, but it's not that tricky. I'm gonna extrude this out, select the vertices here, press M, and merge at the center. Okay, so we got something like this. So we're trying to keep the topology as clean as possible, all right? And extrude. And then bring this down. And move this here and press M and merge at the center. At the same time, we're trying to still keep the nice edges here. The nice consistent shape of the armor as you're creating your geometry. And select this and this and press F to bridge. Okay, that's great. And now we could go ahead, and we don't need this part. So I'm gonna go to face and delete the faces here. There you go. And we could mirror this on the other side, but before we mirror on the other side, yeah, I think this would be good if we mirror it because the cursor is already there. Let's double check. So we're gonna select here. Yep, it's in the middle. So we could just go ahead and mirror that actually. And I'm going to set the merge to 1 so it merges in the middle. Great. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and apply that. And I always like to check in the middle, making sure that everything is welded in the middle. Okay, I'm gonna go to edge, select the edges, an outer part. Okay, and press E to extrude, right click to snap, and then going to move this and then scale it up a bit. A tad bit more, and then scale here a tad bit and a bit more. Okay, so maybe something like that. Great. And yeah, at the same time, I do not want it to be that thick, so probably something like this. Could always adjust it later, we need to. So thinking about maybe something like that. All right. And I think I want to select the vertex here, and just gonna move it down. And also here, and just gonna move this down. Okay, so I think I want to be able to I think this might be a little too thick, so I'm gonna scale this down a bit. Something like that. Okay, and if we add the subdivision surface, you see it melts down the shape, and we don't want that. I'm gonna X that and then hit the tab key. So we need to add some supporting edge loops. Before we add some supporting edge loops, if we look at the back, okay, so we need to have a flat surface here. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go to edge, select this edge here, and we're gonna mirror this on the other side, okay? So before we mirror it, we need to make sure that the cursor, the move tool, is right here in the middle, so we could mirror it in the Z axis. Shift S, cursor to selected, hit the tab key, and let's go to set origin to 3D cursor. So now the move tool, if we go to object mode, should be along these edges. That way, if we go add a mirror, and then we set the axis to Z, it's going to be right where it's supposed to be at the back, okay? And we could set the merge to 1. Uh-oh, that's too much. Set it to 0.1. There you go. So we want it just enough so that we know it's going to weld in the middle. And I'm going to hit apply, hit the tab key, and I always like to double check, make sure it's welded. Control Z, that's good. All right, now I'm going to go and select the edges around here, press X, and dissolve those edges. And I could also select these all around and dissolve the edges. And we could flatten this out, okay? To flatten out the surface at the back. So I'm gonna go go to face, and I'm gonna select the faces here at the back. Yeah, make sure it's only at the back. And we go to the scale tool and scale in the Z direction. You could also look from the side view as we do this. Yeah, make just sure it's in the Z direction. There you go. So that's flatten things out. Okay. And could be a little too thick, so I'm gonna move this like that. Okay. Alright, so something like that would be fine. Probably a little too thin, so maybe, yeah, I think. Alright, now let's go and add some supporting edge loops. Control R, and we could add the supporting edge loop right here. And also right here, because we don't want this shape, this edges here to melt down when we add the subdivision surface. We could also add one right here. We want to keep this edge loops intact, keep the shape here intact. We don't want to have those turn into like a pillow. And also here, and also right here. Okay, so we could see how it looks like. I think we probably don't need these edge yeah, we don't need the edge loop here. So I'm gonna go select the edge here, here, also here, and here. Press X and collapse edges faces. And we don't want any triangles around here, so we could collapse edge faces there. So around the edges, you don't really want any triangles. If you have some triangles on the surface at the back, as long as they're not around the edges, you should be fine. Yeah, you want to avoid the triangles around the edges because that's going to cause some pinching. All right, and then if we take a look, we need to also add some edge loops around here and also here, so it's not going to melt down around this area. So we want to keep a hard edge here, and also we want to keep a hard edge right here and also here. So we want to keep a hard edge right around this area, so we are adding those extra edge loops. Okay, so now if we add subdivision surface, so this is great, and I'm going to remove the subdivision surface. So I think I want to go to face here and just remove the faces here and remove the faces. And I'm gonna go to edge, select this edge, Shift S and cursor to selected, and set origin to 3D cursor. So we want to make sure this is exactly how it is also on the other side. So I'm going to mirror that again and set the merge to 0.1 and hit apply, and making sure, I always like to make sure that the middle is connected. Great, it's connected. Okay, now add a subdivision surface, and I'm gonna set the local viewport to 2. Great. And I'm going to, we need to collapse this because we're going to add a deform, simple deform to bend this. And in order for this to bend, we need to have enough geometry here. So I'm going to just apply the subdivision, hit the tab key, and this is enough for this to bend properly when we add the simple deform. And let's go and add a simple deform. So we got the twist, bend, and taper. Let's set it to bend, and let's set it to Z. If we set it to X, it's not really working because we see the angle. Yeah, adjust the angle, it's not bending properly. We go to Y, it's not gonna work, and Z. Z's probably gonna work the best, but it's just bending in a different direction. So what we need to fix that to bend properly is we need to add an empty object. Shift A on your keyboard, and let's add an empty object, plane axis. And so now we have to select our geometry again, and you see where it says origin right here. Just click on that and find that empty object. What's the name of this? This empty 002. So I'm going to go here and empty 002. There you go. And now it's bending properly. If you go to angle, and you could adjust the angle, making it flat. All right. We need this so that we're able to have it wrap around the character's arm. Okay, and we could go ahead and parent. We need to parent our axis, our empty object, to our geometry. So let's first select our empty object, and then hold the shift key and select your geometry. It has to be in that order. Go to object, parent, parent object. Okay, so now if you go select your object here and you move it around, that empty object is following that geometry, which is exactly what we need. And so now we need to go and move this. Make sure you are on local as you're moving this, so it'll be a lot easier and more accurate as you place this on top of your character's hand. I'm gonna move this down. And then just rotate this and move it down again. Place, oops, and rotate it better. And move this. So it's all about just trying to have it fit the character. So obviously this could be a little too big, so we could always scale that down. Scale it down a bit more, something like that. Just scale it down a bit and rotate. So just look up, down, the side, make it fit their character. You could always go back to your angle also to kind of adjust it to have it fit better. Okay, and just gonna move it and rotate it a little bit better. You don't want it to sink into the skin. Okay, so I know it's like kind of right near where the knuckles are at. Okay, something like that. Okay, great. So we have our first piece of the armor for the character.